Hi everybody, welcome to the Matt Weston 365 YouTube channel. What we're looking at in this video is how we can make our SharePoint sites even more personal by using audiencing. Audiencing is one of those features that's been in SharePoint for a long time, and it's probably one of the more underused elements that I've seen from a modern perspective. So it was always available in Classic, where we could go into a web part and we could specify who we actually wanted to see that web part. What we have from a modern point of view is very much a case of I specify the audiences on the content itself. So rather than specifying it in the web part, all I do is tell the web part that I want to use audiencing. And then from there, I can use audiencing based on security group membership in Azure AD or Microsoft 365 group membership. So either of these will really give me some flexibility for me to go ahead and start using audiencing within SharePoint. So the first thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at Azure AD. So in Azure AD, I've got a number of different types of group that I can have set up to manage users. I can have Active Directory security groups, and those AD groups can be either assigned groups where I'm going to explicitly put users into them, or I can make them dynamic groups where I can have them automatically populated based on certain attributes being set to various values within AD. The alternative is that I can use a Microsoft 365 group. So the Microsoft 365 group could be a group that's been created as a result of a team site being created or a Microsoft team being created within my Microsoft 365 tenancy. So within my demo tenancy here, I have two groups. I have Washington, which is a security group, which is dynamic. And I also have my California office, which is a Microsoft 365 group. And I'm going to be using both of these to help target specific portions of my sites or my content to a specific set of users. So if I come to my SharePoint site, there are a number of things that I need to do in the first place to make my content ready for audiencing. And that is to effectively turn audiencing on. Now this is done on a per list or per library basis. So in this example, I'm going to use audiencing within my news or my site pages so that I can then target specific news items to specific visitors of my site. So I'm going to go and visit my site pages, and I'm going to come to the settings of my site pages library. On my site pages settings, I have an option here for audience targeting. So if I select my audience targeting settings, it's going to give me a very simple option. Do I want to turn audiencing on or do I want to leave it off? So in this case, I'm going to enable my audience targeting. And then once I've saved that, my library is now ready for me to start specifying audiences. So let's actually go and do that on my pages. So in my pages here, I have two pages that I'm going to use for targeting. I have Summer in California and What's New in Washington. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to edit my page first of all. I'm going to start with my Summer in California. And from there, I'm going to edit my page. Now, when I actually have my page in edit mode, I can come and bring up my page details. And then any properties that are associated with this particular page, for example, it could be additional metadata fields, or because I've now turned audiencing on, I can modify my audience over here on the blade on the right side. So looking at my audience, I can then either enter the name or the address of an actual group. So in this case, I'm going to select my California office. And notice here it's selecting my California office members. So it's taking the membership of that particular Microsoft 365 group, and that's what it's going to be using for the audience. So I'm just going to update my news. Okay, excellent. So that's posted. So now I'm going to go and do exactly the same for the What's New in Washington. So exactly the same again. I'm going to go and edit my page. Let's go and select my page details. And this time, I'm going to select my Washington group. So this time, this was using an Active Directory security group. And let's update the news. So now I have two pieces of content that are now audience to individual users or individual groups of users. So now that I've made my changes to my news, I also need to make sure that my web part is going to respond to the audiencing that's been applied. So now that I'm back on my landing page, I'm going to go and edit, and I'm going to edit this news web part that I've got in the center of the screen. So if I bring up my news settings, then you can see here my news source is this site, so I'm quite happy, and I can see that my news is actually rolling through at the moment. But if I scroll down, what I'm interested in is this option here, my Enable Audience Targeting. So if I turn that on, that is now going to mean that my content or my web part is now going to be responsive to the audience that's applied to the content. So it will look at the user, it will look at whether they match one of the audiences, and then apply the necessary trimming. Now just remember with audiencing that audiencing does not equal security. All audiencing is doing is changing who can view it. It's like a view. A view doesn't security trim. Only changing permissions will actually security trim. So all we're doing is hiding content that's not relevant to the person who's logged in. So let's go and republish that. So now that I have made the necessary changes, let's just bring in a couple of test users so we can see the different experiences. So now I have two users. I have Adele, who is part of my dynamic group, so she is part of my Washington group, and I have Alex, who is part of the California office group. So these haven't refreshed at the moment. These are still showing the web parts as they were before I made my configuration. Let's just go and refresh both of these. So now you can see that within this area, I've now got specific information that's being displayed. So Adele, who's part of the Washington group, can see all the Washington content, plus the content that doesn't have an audience applied to it. And likewise, Alex, who was part of the California office group, he can see the California news and all of the news without an audience. So that means that we can now apply geographic targeting to our news, which is really nice because it means the personalization features that we have within SharePoint can now also be made specific to geographic areas or to specific groups that are built within Azure AD. But the audiencing doesn't just have to apply to news and pages, it can also apply to documents as well. So for example, if I come into one of my document libraries, I'm going to come to my settings. In my documents, I have my audience targeting settings. And here I now have two options. I have the option for either enabling classic audiencing. So for example, if I do have any classic sites, then I can still use the content query web part, and therefore my audiencing will apply to that. And likewise, I can enable audience targeting based on the modern experience. So that means that this will be this will show me or use audiencing if I'm using, for example, things like the highlighted content web part. So it just really allows me to have that additional, again, focus on what I want my users to see, not only from site pages or from pages themselves, but also from other content, such as what's stored in a document library. So there we go. That's our introduction to audiencing within SharePoint. Very simple to use, very simple to set up, and it's really nice that you can use either group, either a security group or a Microsoft 365 group, to really control the permissions. So, so for example, an AD group can be dynamic, Microsoft 365 groups, managed through the front end, very much within the capability of an end user to manage that membership. So quite nice the way that we've got the options there to really use audiencing to its fullest extent. And just remember why we're doing this. We're trying to make our pages as bespoke or as user-centric as possible. So the more information we can show the user that is relevant to them, the more engagement we're going to get on our SharePoint pages. So I hope that's been useful. I hope that's explained audiencing and given you some ideas about how you can use it. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to post into the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. If you are enjoying the videos, please do like and subscribe, and I'll make sure that the content keeps coming. But for now, stay safe everybody, and we'll speak again soon.